Welcome to another episode of the Nerd Germ. This is Billy, and today we're going to be talking about the open beta weekend for Diablo 3, which just occurred this past weekend. I had the pleasure of spending some time on the game with each of the characters, so we're going to get into the click-worthiness of each character. All right, what I started out doing was I wanted to play as much of each character as I could to establish which character I wanted to have as my main tune when the game finally releases. I didn't want to have to scrap through the first couple days of owning the game to figure out what I really enjoyed, what played well, what was matching my gaming personality, and what did I want to invest the most time in. So what I started off with first was the Barbarian, and I started out with the Barbarian because I thought it was going to be the very last character that I would want to have as my main character, mostly because I'm usually attracted to the ranged characters in RPGs in most games, like League of Legends, StarCraft. I like to have the distance and the control that's created with distance. So starting out with the Barbarian, instantly you realize that he is anything but range. He's in your face, bloody blades slashing at your throat, grabbing at your brains and eating it. Coolest part about the Barbarian is definitely the appearance and the energy around the Barbarian. He or she is the brutal monster of this game, the unleashed beast that they're trying to battle hell with. The abilities are, like most of the abilities in this game, evolutions of the original Diablo and Diablo 2. You have a lot of melee, mostly melee, which is what this character is really derived from. He's derived from swords, axes, blades, maces, clubs, and uses them to beat the absolute hell out of the undead all the way down to hell. What's cool about the Barbarian is that that doesn't make him quite as sluggish as you would think. Actually, there's a lot of mobility with the Barbarian. In fact, the Barbarian, from what I saw in the beta, is the only character to have like a leap ability. And the leap ability is actually pretty cool. It's very satisfying. You feel like it's a nice distance. It's a really cool, exaggerated height. So you use it constantly, and it looks flashy, and it brings a lot to the spontaneity of the Barbarian. He can leap from one pile of baddies to another to help save someone or pull some aggro off. It's really cool. What I didn't like about the Barbarian is that, just the simple attacks, which you're going to be doing 99% of the time during your playing of Diablo, is it's kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say delayed, but it's kind of sluggish. You feel like he or she, the character, is not swinging with the exact timing of your clicks, which is really what this video is all about. How did it feel to me? And I felt like if I had to fight 100 enemies all at once, that I was going to be clicking all over the place. I never really felt like it was very accurate, and it was slow and clunky, right? So, but this being my first character, I kind of had some concerns. I was like, oh crap, all the characters are going to be clunky and stuff like this. But it's not that it really ruins the experience. It's just that for me, I like that fast, quick, off the tip of the click, response from a game and a character. So if you like the brutal monster that is the Barbarian, you won't be disappointed. But if you want it to be, this sleek ninja-like slasher, no, it's just a brutal brain masher. Onto another melee masher, the monk, which actually I will say, even though this is my second character I'm talking about, this one surprised me the very most. I thought that the monk looked really cool, the trailer looked cool, I was excited about it, but I still didn't think it was going to be my main character. I was like, it looks cool and flashy, and he's a monk, so it's kind of a different experience, whatever. I went to this. The monk has probably the most satisfying click worthiness. When you're bashing a zombie in the face, you feel like every click really is designing this kung fu style battle sense that you have, and he's fast, and he's, even though he's melee, he has this sense of range because he kind of forces his kicks and punches away from his body, kind of as if he's using the energy off of a fighting style to knock his enemies back without physically touching them. So it really has this cool snap ability where it snaps back and forth between hits, and you can actually somewhat teleport around this battle scene and just hit the enemies that you want to hit, and it is kind of wild and crazy, and it's hard to control, but it's always satisfying, and it always looks a lot more fluid than your clicks really are. You're all over the place, but he's really, concentrating it down. And he also has, I would say he is Mr. OP. Like, you go into a big battle with tons of enemies, he's probably going to be able to make it all by himself, just with bashing their faces in and not really having to use a lot of the special abilities, which his special abilities are really cool. They involve heals, they involve healing allies and things like that, but most of the coolness of the monk is the sheer martial arts style that he has. It's so elegant and sweet, and it's something new to the Diablo series, so I'm glad to see it in. Next, we're going to have the Demon Hunter, which the Demon Hunter is really cool. It's all range character, which at first I thought this was going to be my main character. I was like, oh cool, Demon Hunter has the crossbows, she's going to be like the projectile master of the group, which she is, no doubt. What that brings with it, as far as balancing games go with games like this, is that she's extremely weak, and if you're alone and you're surrounded, you're going to get your ass beat, which is great for this game, because this game's not about playing alone. It's about playing with strangers or friends and teaming up and co-op through this dungeon looting mayhem that is Diablo 3. So when I played with groups and strangers, it was a lot of fun because I could tear the shit out of things without having to worry about having my ass handed to me. But when I tried to play alone, it was hard to defeat the bosses of the dungeons and things, because she's just not very resilient. She can't take a lot of damage. It's hard for the Demon Hunter to really solo, I think, at least as an early level. And I feel the same way about the Witch Doctor, but I'll talk about in a second. Anyway, the Demon Hunter uses projectiles, crossbows, bow and arrows, anything that is projectile, which is another great thing about this Diablo, is the amount of weapons is crazy. Just in the beta alone, it really gives you this sense that you're just tapping the surface at thousands of sets of weapons, armors, and trinkets, everything that can help you establish and develop your character, which is what we're in it for. We're in it for this feeling that we're working towards an end goal of a kick-ass, superhuman, badass devil hunter. But anyway, on to what I feel is the worst character in Diablo 3. Not necessarily the worst character as far as story goes, but definitely click-worthiness, and that is the Witch Doctor. Until you reach about level 5, the Witch Doctor feels extremely weak, and also kind of extremely useless unless you're in a group. Like, if you were to start out this beta, or what I assume to be the final release, alone, you're not going to get very far until you really farm and raise your level up, get some extra skills. The initial spell for the Witch Doctor just seems so weak, and just so weak compared to the other characters. Like, I don't know. I know that once you level up, the Witch Doctor has some fancy flair to it. You get the hounds from hell, as pets and things like that. And it has a lot of AoE, which just gives off this sense that the Witch Doctor is the support character. And maybe not endgame. Maybe endgame, it's almost overpowered because of all the AoEs, and it can take out this, a lot of crowd control in this character. But as far as an early game character, very weak, and you're going to want to play it with groups, which is actually a contradiction to the Barbarian and the Monk, which I feel like you could play the game solo with those two and have a blast. The Witch Doctor is, I wouldn't say clunky. It's smooth. It's just that it's almost indirect. Like the second spell you get is throwing jars filled with spiders. Well, there's not a lot of control when you're doing that. You pretty much have to just click away and mash and hope that you scatter the area with spiders and cover your enemies and the mayhem that is these crawling spiders. And I just feel like this character is not going to be at the top of my list. I thought it was because I'm used to enjoying spellcasters, but this one just fell short from my expectations of it. On to the juice is the wizard, which I thought, for me personally, was the most fun and rewarding and satisfying click worthiness, which is what we're talking about here. The wizard has many projectile abilities, as well as not really melee but close range abilities like bursts and escapes and shields and things like that. What's cool about the wizard is that not only does she have projectiles, she has beams. So early on you get what is like an ice beam that will slow down targets and eventually, shatter them as ice particles, which is really cool, and it's rewarding. You feel like even if you're surrounded, you can just blast things away. And I really like her arcane abilities, which are not really beam-like, but more just energy bursts, which are really cool, and I like the range, and I like the satisfaction of the click. I like to feel like when I throw this arcane beam and it hits the character, there's this real response from my shot to the way the animation works, the way the sound feels, everything, how the character responds to the shot, how the enemies respond by flying back or anything like that. And I feel like the wizard had the most fluidity. I think that the wizard, it's a sleek character, and I think it's going to be my main, at least at the beginning, just because it was a toss-up between the monk, after this whole experience, between the monk and the wizard. But I think the wizard just has more of the range and spellcaster technique that is more my style, so I'm looking forward to see how that expands as you level up even higher. And one great thing about this whole experience is all of the characters kind of have this, they're insanely different visually, cosmetically, story-wise. Everything's different, but the style in which they've made leveling, it kind of brings this similarity to League of Legends and other tower defense games, where every character kind of plays similarly, but they're all so different. If you get what I'm saying by that, it's that they all have similar spell styles and energy usages. Like the barbarian, he has to whoop a bunch of ass before he can whoop a hard ass, because his abilities require him to work up fury before he can use the harder spells. In the same way with the monk, he works up spirit to use his bigger, harder spells. And it works that way with each character. They just kind of encase it in a different shade so that you kind of feel like you're playing a totally different character, and it looks a lot like it with the different animations, but it's very similar among them all, which is going to actually help balancing and make patching and balancing the game easier. And the only reason I say the monk is overpowered is because he seems to have it's not that he has spells that the others don't, it just seems like his spells affect a multitude of enemies more efficiently than the others. Not to say the barbarian can't just whoop 1,000 creeps' asses in a few moments, but he just doesn't have the style that the monk has. But I still feel like the wizard, the animations for the wizard, and the satisfaction from clicking the wizard was the top. So that's my choice. Well, this has been my Diablo 3 click-worthiness video. We'll see how it comes when it goes out. I'm really glad that Blizzard gave us a chance to dip the tip in, even if it was only for a couple days. And they probably guaranteed a lot of pre-orders over this weekend by letting people get their nails into the product for just a little bit. And I hope to bring you guys some more videos in the future on how I feel about the final release. Thanks for watching. Like the nerd germ, motherfuckers.